All right, Rob Brown here with you on this Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, everybody. Monday morning, September
Feels like Labor
2nd.
Day after that weekend.
It was, yeah. We all watched a lot of football. It was absolutely nonstop. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Got another
I'm
game
drinking
tonight.
today.
Yeah, heavily. Hey, get your pen and paper handy because we want you to smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on Android, iPhone. We're live, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all over. We got a great one. Coach Ellis Johnson, one of the top veteran defensive coordinators in the South. He's going to give his take on what happened over the weekend and his thoughts on college football. Also, Lauren Meadows, GatorBaitMedia.com, checks in with us, along with Ron Higgins, Shreveport Bossier Journal, talking some LSU and SEC. And then out west, we'll go to Dallas, Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, talking some Longhorns, Aggies, Sooners, Boomer Sooner. All that coming up. Get pen and paper handy right now.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Coach, let me just get this one. This just came in. Please tell Coach Ellis Johnson that Doug Dean says in all caps, thank you for quickly recognizing in the booth in the 2013 Iron Bowl timeout with 1 second left, that field goal was returnable. We all know some people can take credit for it, but we all know it was Ellis Johnson. Coach, I was actually in the locker room right after the game. My two boys were in section 42, and I said, did y'all just run on the field? They said, Dad, we didn't have a choice. The mountain was falling, and we just rode with it. And Wilson took a selfie with Sammy Coates, and Max, my youngest son, was in the set in between Chris Fowler and Gus Malzahn and all the cheerleaders. I'm like, he looked like Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But, Coach, welcome aboard. You've been coaching for a while. One of the more recognizable names, I told you the other day when we were talking, Brother Oliver from Epps, Alabama, Kevin Steele from Gordo, Alabama, and you, Ellis Johnson, from Winter, South Carolina. Y'all all remind me your style, your nature, your demeanor of one another, and we're honored to have you on here. I heard you on Gary Harris, my friend's show, who's on with us every week. Do a great job of breaking these games down. So let's just say, hey, first, again, thanks for joining us and your thoughts on the games that you saw on the color TV over the weekend.
Well, I thought overall, just looking at the SEC and guys, it's so hard now to see every team. You got so many teams in the conference, and then of course week one is usually where they're playing some out of conference teams, and some of them are just playing tune-up games. And I'll be frank with you, about 5 of them I didn't even see a play. But I think the games were really good matchups, and obviously one of them yesterday was one of them with LSU and Southern Cal. But it looks like the conference is going to be just as powerful. It looks like I start to see inconsistencies and unpredictabilities creeping in to college football. And it's hard to say that with just opening games because they're always a little unpredictable. But with all the transferring, I think you're going to see a little bit more with occasionally something that happens in the course of a game where you can tell they haven't had that kid in that program very long.
Yeah.
You brought up something that happened to LSU that possibly cost them the game last night with a celebration afterwards. I may be wrong, but I think if you got a kid in your program for 2 or 3 years, they know better than to do that. And if they don't, that's bad coaching. Yeah. But anyhow, I think it's going to be another exciting year. I think it's obviously some things going on that I personally, as an old timer, I don't like it. I don't like the freelance transferring. I think every kid ought to be able to leave at least once. And I think they ought to be able to leave when their coach leaves, because that's what started all this. Coaches signing 5-year contracts, stay 2 years, take their millions, go to another college, and half of the guys on the team were recruited by him, and they're stuck. That's not right. But I think right now it's out of control, and they need to get some kind of guardrails on it. Same thing with the NIL money. They need to be paid. They need to be rewarded. But this thing right now is a freight train that's not going to end up in a good place.
Yeah, and we all know the lessons of life. Stick it out, grind it out, find excuses to win. It drives us all crazy. You watch that. I want to go over a few games I'm going to ask you about. Georgia, Clemson. First half, nothing really, exceptional happened. But in the second half, Georgia pulled away. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the main thing is that Clemson's offense basically just could not function. They ran successful plays, but even when they executed correctly, Georgia stopped them. They just finally left the defense, out there against a really good offensive team, and they ran out of gas. I think Clemson still got a chance to be really good on defense if they stay healthy.
Yeah.
They're better up front than I thought they were. I've seen a couple of their scrimmages this year. I thought they had dropped down a notch up front. And I do think they're missing a couple of those destructive edge players they've had, but they're still deep and they're talented up front. They stay healthy in the back where they're not as deep, and they're going to still be good on defense. Offensively, they have continued into what was last year. They're not making enough plays in the running game to be a really good offensive football team. And as a result, when they play these 2 or 3 or 4 opponents on their schedule, like a Georgia or a Florida State, that can play with them physically and they can't finesse them, they're having a problem. Yeah. And so that's what I see down the road. They've also had a little drop off in the kicking game. They went through a period of about 10 years there with tremendous punters and place kickers. Mm-hmm. And when you're in tight ball games against these great football teams, it normally comes down to that. And they've had a little inconsistency in that. It didn't get them the other night, but I just think Georgia in the long run was too physical for them on defense for Clemson's offense. And without being able to finesse them, they just couldn't put points on the board.
Yeah. And I agree. It was, it took a while for Georgia to get rolling, but when they did, it was too much and Clemson just couldn't dig out of that hole. They're going to win 9-10 games. Just, I wouldn't say talent alone. They just, that program really well. So I've always been a Dabo fan, but he's probably like me. He likes the way he does it. And I heard Kirby Smart say about someone asked him about the portal and Dabo, and he said, "Are you asking me to comment on someone else?" He goes, "I don't do that." He goes, "But I will tell you, I like my team." I thought that was a telling, remarks by him.
I'm glad, Rob, you brought that up. I'm telling you, those two guys do not run their teams much differently when it comes to the portal. If you'll notice, what Kirby said was, "I'm not going in and wholesale shop the transfer portal. We feel like we do a great job in recruiting to high schools. And occasionally, if I have a kid leave, though, I have to replace him." Yeah. And that's maybe the difference. In particular, their problem this year was wide receivers. They were all gone. And then Byers, who was not a wideout, was probably the best receiver on their team. Yeah. So he goes out and replaces them with older, more dynamic, experienced guys who've proven it somewhere else. Yeah. Dabo brought in 2 5-stars from high school. Between them yesterday, they caught 2 balls, 1 each. Yeah. Wow. And everybody wants to know where they are, where they're high school guys and they're developing. And I can remember, like, the Javian Clowney didn't start the first year we got him at Carolina. He was considered the best overall signee in the history of college football. So it's starting to be a problem. I wish it would work the way Dabo wants it to work. And he's not going to be hard-headed and refuse to ever do it. Yeah. But he's trying to do it that way. And it's not just a portal thing. He's trying to hold accountability on his coaches. If you go out there and recruit a kid and you evaluate him, he better be what you think he is. And you better be able to develop him, because you're not going to get another one because you've made a mistake. So it's sort of an accountability thing with the staff and recruiting too. So I think it's going to have to be an adjustment. He'll make the right one. But that's, to me, is a great example Kirby went and got 2 transfers in his wide receiver group. Dabo's developing 2 5-stars from high school. One's not as fast as the other.
Yeah. Great take on that. I would love any time to talk to Dabo because that's how I think. But I know eventually we change and you adapt, but you can't give up on your core principles. And I respect that. I got to ask you about Florida and Miami. I thought Florida, coach, and you look at everything they have. If you're the coach at Florida at football, you're on a gravy train with biscuit wheels, to borrow the line from, Big E, Ernie McCracken in the movie Kingpin, the greatest bowling movie ever. But you got everything in the world going for you down there. I don't know Billy Napier. I watch him. We got a lot of Gators. They're part of the Buddy Martin show, the best Fridays in football with Buddy Martin and Brendan and Urban Meyer on this channel here. What was your takeaway from that? Is Miami that good, or Florida just have that many issues, or combination? As a coach, you see things we don't.
I think that Cristobal's done a great job since he's been there of taking a program that's sort of stuck in third gear. He's recruited well. It seems that they know what they want to be. They know their identity, and they've improved each year he's been there, because they had some terrible losses when he first got there too. But it seems they've grown out of that. Florida seems to be kind of caught in a rut, and I know Billy extremely well, and I think he's a great football coach. I just think he inherited a situation with some problems that had to be fixed. They've had some misses. The mess with the quarterback in the portal, I don't know if his last recruiting class or 2 recruiting classes ago. I don't know what happened, but it was kind of a crazy thing. Remember with the NIL? That kid may have been the answer. He may have been the one that, kind of got him over the edge offensively. But something right now, it's just not a good look. They don't look like they're sure of what they're doing. It's kind of the body language, the critical plays at critical times I talk about. They seem to not make those at the wrong time. And I can't put my finger on it. But it's 2 programs that, to me, 3 or 4 years ago, they were about in the exact same place. And they just haven't progressed the same way. And I'll tell you, Rob, this may be a little controversial, but I was talking to a Florida Gator the other day that I've worked with before. If you go back through their entire history in that place, you're not going to find a stretch of continuous winning of championships except when Steve Spurrier was there and when Urban Meyer was there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Urban Meyer thing ended with some tremendous issues, off the field things and such. And some of that stuff I think is never healed. Dan Mullen's as good a football coach as there is that I coached against. He did it at Mississippi State, had them going to national bowl games, et cetera, playing for almost a championship. Didn't work at Florida. So in spite of what everybody looks like, Florida is one of the greatest programs, one of the top 15 programs to get that head coaching job. I don't think it is. History proves it's not. And I don't know why, but it's not.
Coach, we have a magazine, Gatorbait Magazine. We cover Florida. The other side of the business, my father's Buddy Martin, sports writer. So we've been around the program for a minute. You talked about the litany of coaches, what's going on, what's wrong. Sometimes I wonder if Florida's too big of a fishbowl for a coach. It's like that perfect storm. Urban Meyer talks about it. We do a podcast with him. We talk about several other coaches. Urban would talk about how he didn't want to go out to dinner after a loss or even after a win because it was so much. He's like, you can't avoid it in Gainesville. Some of these other towns, places like Miami, these, you kind of get, there's pro teams and other places to hide. In a place like Gainesville, there's not. Do you think that plays into why it's so difficult to coach at Florida?
Well, it could, but I mean, same way with Clemson, same way with Carolina. Same way with Athens, Georgia. They're not much bigger. Athens may be a little bigger. If you win and you go out to eat, it doesn't matter if you eat it at the Waffle House or the best steakhouse in town. Everybody thinks you're the best friend. And then if you lose, they think you're a crook. One thing that's happened with all this, guys, is the amount of money in it now. And people are putting that money out of their pocket into the program. They're watching the TV people pay all this money. They're looking at coaches who have PE degrees making $7 million a year, and they've got engineering degrees, and they're not making but $220,000 a year, and
Yeah.
people don't understand it. It's just not to get off in the weeds, but I don't think Gainesville is that different than a lot of other places in that respect. But I do think that there's an expectation at Florida, and I go back to what I previously said. If they do a little self-examination now, what Steve did there during his tenure, there's nobody else that's even come close to matching that. Now, they did it briefly, but they didn't do it for the number of years he did it, and Urban did it. So it's got a history that, I don't think you can discount the history of a program.
Yeah.
I think it makes a difference. Now, if you look at the recruiting base and the fan base, anybody would look at that and say, man, I'm going in there. We're going to be one of the top 5 programs in the country every year.
Yeah.
Another thing that happens, they say, oh, we got this great recruiting base. Everybody goes to Florida recruiting.
Yeah.
And so, although it's your backyard, you got thousands of coaches in there recruiting in your backyard every year.
Coach,
Well,
they talked about.
yeah.
I heard a bunch of breakdown after the game. Shane Matthews, color analyst and former NFL player and Gator great, talking a lot. Had a show this morning. Talked a lot about keeping it simple in these first games. That Miami had a better, more simpler approach to the ball game. Especially offensively, playing to their strengths. In that game, you say you talk about knowing Billy Napier really well. He's very organized, very, very methodical. Do you think that there's sometimes, a little too much wrinkle trying to implement? You think maybe keeping it a little more simple in that approach on Saturday might have bode a little better for them?
Well, I was flipping back and forth between the game and that game, and so I can't speak to it the way Shane did, because I'm sure he saw the entire game and he knows it better than I do. But I do think that when you're having success, you look like you know what you're doing. And at the end of the game, people think, boy, they sure were simple. They kept it simple and they executed and did it well. And then the other sides of it is sometimes they're not having success, and so they're looking for an answer and they run a different play, or you call a different route, And so sometimes I think all that is a reflection of the fact that whether you're blocking and tackling and catching and running and so forth, it's not as much of the play selection or the approach to the game. It's the fact that you're not playing well, and you're searching for answers as the game moves along, and you try a blitz that doesn't work, or So I don't know about that, but if Shane said that, then it's probably right there in black and white.
Coach, yeah. Go ahead. You finish.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. No, I was just going to say you're pointing out, and you're right. Everybody goes to Florida, and you look at Clemson and Georgia coming into this game. They'd played in either Clemson or Georgia 7 of the previous 9 national championship games. And isn't it amazing how quickly you can take a program, Clemson, that played in national championship 15, 16, 18, and 19, and now you got people saying, "Oh, the program's." Fans. Well, it is that it's all in perspective. I listened to a podcast I was telling you about before the show on LSU after the game, a live podcast. I'm telling you, it was unbelievable. I don't know how. I've never heard anything like that going on. And so I got to ask you now a couple of more games real quick. Lauren Meadows will be on with us in a second, but your take and stay with us. I know you've got a busy day, but we want to get you back on next Monday if you can do it to break these games down. I got to ask you about Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Your takeaway on that one. I
was very surprised at how physical and I guess efficient that Notre Dame looked. I've seen them a few games since Marcus has taken over, and they look like they would come to a critical point in the game and they'd screw up something. And they looked like a good football team, but they just couldn't quite find those 4 or 5 plays a game, or they'd get beat at a critical time or so forth. And I tell you, they took it to Texas A&M. I thought Texas A&M would win that ball game, especially being at home. And I thought they'd win it by a touchdown. And again, because of so many games, you're flipping back and forth with another game. But the more I watched it, They just seem to take more control of the game, make the plays at the right time, et cetera. And I think they got a heck of a football team. I made a comment to you before we came on, and I hope this doesn't prove to be true because I'm still a SEC guy. But I think Notre Dame and Southern Cal on these games this weekend, just the overall impression, they look like they're two of the best teams in the country right now.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, I'm with you. I mean, I watched a lot of really good football. There's one, okay, we've talked about Georgia, Clemson, Florida, Miami, LSU, Southern Cal, and Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Looking ahead for this coming week, Texas has to go to the Big House and play Michigan. Have you ever coached up there in the Big House?
Never have.
Give me your thoughts real quick before we let you go. And I'm just curious what you think about Texas. And do you know Coach Sarkisian?
Not well at all. I don't know if I've ever really met him. But, I kind of went out on a limb and I predicted Texas to maybe win the SEC this year. I thought the way they finished last year, they're more dynamic on offense than most all of them in the SEC. And I think they're getting more physical on defense, both from recruiting and philosophy. And I really think they might have been the best team in the conference last year toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
So that, I'm still kind of on that bandwagon. I think they're much more explosive and they're a better football team than Michigan. Going up there, if Michigan controls the line of scrimmage, which I don't think they will do consistently, they might can beat them. But I would put it anywhere from a close Michigan win to getting Texas beating them by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Listen, man, Coach, awesome stuff. I love your insight. We got to do this a lot more often, maybe more than once a week, because I'm getting texts and you're getting the people excited. I can see. Look, you know it, like Brenda's. I've got people the other night. I said something about Florida on something, and people are ready to go hang me from a tree. I'm like, hey, it's just an opinion. But, Coach, you remember the days, this was the old days, after the games, you would have an assistant coach from defense and one from offense, like on the Auburn post-game show. Let's go to Jim down in Enterprise. Jim, let me tell you something, Coach. It was like walking the green mile. But, God, your take on these games, I'll go back and watch all these shows. I love it. And, the bottom line, did you see the crowds? I'll let you go after this, but the crowds everywhere. 90,000, 93,000 in Gainesville, 90,000 in Auburn for Alabama A&M. The crowd at the Las Vegas Allegiant Stadium out there for Southern Cal and LSU was as loud. It was like one of the CFP playoff games. College football, as hard as we've tried to screw it up, it just keeps on getting better, doesn't it?
It does. And of course, I played at a lower level and I've coached at every level. The thing that the top teams are going to benefit from this, Rob, all the NIL portal stuff, you're going to get about 25 or 30 teams every year that look a little bit like the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
But it's going to damage football down through the lower levels. And I don't mean just group of 5 and all that. I'm talking about 1AA and all that. And I don't like to see it because it's one of the greatest things about football is so many guys playing it and getting opportunities to go to school. Now, I know that's not what this program's about. This program's about national powers and so forth. And there's no question.
No, I'm with you.
The NIL and the portal and all of that, it's going to make these rosters even better than they were 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they're going to fill, looks like I mentioned a while ago, Kirby fixed his wide receiver group with college players. Dabo fixed his with 2 5-star recruits.
Yeah.
Could have come out the same, but it didn't. It will be eventually. Those kids are really good. I've seen them. They're just not in the system yet. But whatever. Yeah. I think that what's going on in college football is only going to make the TV games more exciting. I'm scared it's going to be like it was when I'm a little older than you. When I was an elementary school kid, there weren't about 12 teams every year that could win the national championship.
Yeah.
And I hate to see it go back to that, but I'm afraid it is.
Yeah, something I'm hoping the free market, I believe in the free market will fix it. Coach Ellis Johnson, let's do this again next week. Thank you so much for your time and coming on here. And I'm going to listen to you again Thursday on Gary's show, Tide 100.9. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it, Rob. It was a lot of fun.
All right, happy Labor Day. Thanks.
Hey,
All
we're
right,
going to
man.
bring in our guest. I just want to say a quick public service announcement here in the chat. Gayders and the guys out there talking stuff about saying you're a dumbass, calling people old and all that stuff. Listen, don't bring that stuff in here. I got a rule in my house, and this is my house, by the way. Just because you're having a bad day doesn't give you a right to be an asshole. Clean it up. Or just don't come watch the show because we don't do that here. All right.
Yeah.
I'm done with that. All right.
Yeah.
Let's bring in
Yeah.
Ron Higgins
Yeah.
and Lauren Meadows. Hey guys.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
All right.
Awesome. It's football season, man. Looking over here, Ellis Johnson has a few opinions, and I said,
Oh, yeah.
Remember the old days back when the assistant coaches, offense and defense, had to be on the post-game show? You picked the school. Woo, man, it got.
Yeah.
It
Well,
got
man,
bad.
I wanted to, next time you have Ellis on, I need to catch him. He and I used to tear up the same amount of road when I was coaching in Durham, North Carolina. So he came through the school a couple times, and really good guy, man. Very knowledgeable, great to be around.
Yeah.
So when I was down in Kim Browning, who was at UNC forever, and Gary Merrill, I was on the staff down there at Northern Durham High School. Ellis came through a couple times on a few of our kids. So Mac Brown kind of had the pipeline rolling from Northern Durham to UNC, but Clemson was coming in a few times trying to grab a few of those kids. So,
Oh, yeah. Coach, I mean, he's got a son who's a preferred walk-on at Clemson, a daughter at Auburn, a son who's a GA at Murray State with Jody Wright. Ron Higgins, last night, we're watching the LSU Southern Cal game. Buddy of mine, Doug Dean, who's on our show, part of our team, sent me a link to Matt Moscone, T-Bob Hebert, and another guy, a podcast that was live after the show.
Oh, yeah.
Woo!
It's
Take it from here.
They do a podcast called Whiskey and Wine, and
That's it.
And basically, they go to this place. I think it's a cigar bar, Rose, and basically, they get drunk and rant on the air, which is I guess it's great radio. Basically, it's like what every LSU fan wants to do when they lose is get drunk and rant. So I guess it's great stuff. But hey, LSU's kind of is like in Florida's boat this week. And until the game, everybody was praising them for playing somebody. Hey, you're playing somebody this week. Y'all are stepping up. Yeah, but you lost. So, LSU played Southern Cal. LSU played Florida State 2 years in a row. LSU played UCLA 1 year. LSU's lost a bunch of games to open the season. And so people are saying, well, that's really brave, but they're still losing the games. What difference does it make right now? Honestly, I know people look at it like, well, it's going to help your team later on.
Yeah.
Screw that. It's not helping your team right now. You got beat again.
Yeah.
I don't care if you play a good team. You got beat again. I'm sorry. I think LSU fans are like, at this point, like, why can't we just go schedule? Why don't we schedule a Humpty the second week? Let's schedule Humpty the first week. Get our 70 on the scoreboard, and then take that little confidence we have and go into week 2, 1-0 instead of being 0-1 like we have been now for 5 years in a row. LSU could have won that game, but you had a couple of upperclassmen make really dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Lauren, it drives me absolutely crazy. Just out of my nuts when I see a guy score a touchdown and then do something incredibly dumb afterwards to get a personal foul penalty that moves the ball 15 yards back. LSU kicks off. The guy returns it 45 yards. Mm-hmm. They get a field goal out of it. That's 3 points. Then later on, another senior, Major Burns, guy's been there forever, takes his helmet off before he comes off the field after LSU finally gets a stop.
Mm-hmm.
Puts him back 15 yards. They would have been almost their 40-yard line to open a series up. Puts him back. They go 3 and out. They punt. The guy gets a lousy punt. USC scores in 3 plays. Game switches. It's just, I don't know how you could coach guys not to be dumb in situations like that. It's like You've been around a long time. You're not a freshman. You didn't just show up yesterday. Why do you keep making dumb mistakes like that? I mean, the helmet thing. Maybe I can see that. Okay, maybe I can see a guy get caught up in it, and he'll pop it off 5 yards away from the sideline, and that's can be called or not be called. But to have your wide receiver make a great catch on a touchdown, and then is walking, goes up a tunnel, walks back down, and comes and does like he's shooting a defensive back.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You dumbass. I'm sorry. That just infuriates the hell out of me. It's like, it's like, I mean, we hate to invoke the name of Bear Bryant, but it's Bear Bryant. I mean, I know most of the people on this, people listening to the show are like, yeah, Bear Bryant's like 90,000 years old. He's dead. He's been dead for a long time. Well, as Bear Bryant used to say, and probably Darrell Royal, all the great old coaches, when you're in the end zone, act like you've been there before. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand, but I understand there's going to be some celebration. I get that. I mean, hey, you should. I think you're allowed to celebrate. You should celebrate your teammates. If you want to do look, they're a lot more lenient than they used to be. I mean, they're not going to flag you right away. But for to do something stupid like that, it's unbelievable. And then it just kind of went from there. I mean, LSU's defense looked a lot like last year's defense. I mean, wide open people in the middle.
Yeah.
Pass rush sporadic. Defensive backs not locating the ball. I don't know if you can fix that overnight. I don't know if $16.11 million worth of defensive coaching salaries for a new staff can fix that overnight. And honestly, offensively, still can't run the ball. And the most disappointing thing of the whole game was the veteran offensive line that we've all talked about with 98 starts and how great they're going to be. They still couldn't run the ball. And they were going against a defensive front that had four SEC transfers. Yeah. They're kind of like castaways, kind of. So Brian Kelly was really pissed afterwards, which was a good sign. I like the fact that he pounded the podium one time, pissed off about just the fact that they just didn't have the killer instinct to put the game away. So, I mean, but still, LSU fans are like, okay, we got drunk for 4 days. We wasted all this money. We still got beat. Why don't we just stay home and beat a Humpty and then just move on?
Yeah. Lauren, Ron, what I love about Ron is he lays it out there. You
Absolutely.
do too. Ron, Lauren and I were talking yesterday. He was at the game in the Swamp Saturday. The more people spend, the angrier they get with unfavorable outcomes. And I don't blame them.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's at that point now. I mean, you think about it. I think when you talk about spending, Florida fans are upset that, they spent $49 million and this is what they're getting. And you look at it, I had conversations with quite a few people yesterday and last night that were at the football game, that watched the game, that are in the know, spend quite a bit of money. When you talk about NIL and some of those things, and it's for lack of a better term, they feel like they've been sold a shoddy bill of goods. And, a lot of this came into, this is what we're going to get. We're getting this guy that's a savant offensively, a manager of people and things like that. And I've said it on your show, he wins outside of the Hefner football complex with the Gator Maid and all those things. But when you look at this football team and what you saw from the Florida Gators on Saturday, it wasn't a dumpster fire, because a dumpster fire means you got kids doing all kind of other stuff. But from a football standpoint, it was extremely bad. And I think what frustrates people is every single year over the last 3 years, you've heard from Billy Napier and company that this is getting better. We're working. Our processes are in place, whatever that means. And then you look at it and the processes look like nothing. I mean, you have people that are learned people on both sides of the football, and they don't know what's going on. What are the concepts offensively? What are the concepts defensively? And it lends itself to just an overall poor game plan. So you have these people that are continuously spending money, putting money into the program, allowing you the resources that you feel like you need. And let's agree, the landscape of college football is changing, and there is strength in numbers with the analysts and things like that. And Saban and some of those guys were actually on the cutting edge. You know, Saban was the analyst. It was like the like Fran says, the home for wayward coaches with the analyst, and everybody then followed suit. So Billy Napier, you know, in some ways is trying to recreate that. What he's not recreating, and like I talk about, is what you're judged on is the on the field product. And it continues to look like nothing. There's no concepts. What are they running? What is the quarterback reading? What are they reading on defense? What are their keys? Why would you? I mean, you have nothing threatening you vertically, but the safety is still 20 yards deep, and there's a 12-yard in route coming in. You have no vertical threat, you know, keeping you that deep. So it's like, and you know, to kind of piggyback on Ron, the defense at LSU picked up where it left off, which means that, I mean, all of a sudden Corey Raymond can't coach defensive backs. It wasn't great at UF, and now it's not great again at LSU. It's something is amiss in this whole operation, because Will Harris, from what I saw in the spring, was doing a great job with those defensive backs, and it's just not translating to the field. And you have this cloak and dagger movement under Billy Napier where everything's so hush-hush, and he doesn't. I mean, I heard him describe Pup Howard, and the word he used was long and heavy-handed. What does that mean? If Pup Howard punches you in the face, that he'll knock you out? Take the time and describe what a player's like. And I love, I mean, I can appreciate this because I think I was raised right, and I've not always been the best person throughout my life, but 99% of people I've come in contact with have really good character. And Billy Napier loves that word, character, character, character. Well, I don't think I associate with any bad characters in my professional nor personal life, but continuously describing character as a measuring stick for, we talked about Iran, for a game that is played by savages. I want some shoddy characters in a lot of ways, at least when they kick off. Now, most of them are great young men, but I want a savage when they line up.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this one at you, and I'm going to throw this to Ron first. By year 2, if you don't see discernible progress being made, then in year 3, in the first game, you take a giant step backwards, it ain't going to happen. True or false, Ron?
Maybe true somewhat. I mean, with LSU, they've made progress. I mean, I'll give them that. Look, I keep going back to the fact that
I was talking about Billy Napier, really, but not Brian Kelly.
Napier, yeah. I mean, it's got to be aggravating. I mean, I go back to the fact that you're in. I don't know how you can't build any kind of winner in the state of Florida with the football talent in state. It's almost friggin' impossible. It just is, and I agree with Lauren. You got to have some a-holes on your team, Hoss. You really do. Some nasty people. They can be nice people off the field, but on the field they just got to be jerks. I mean, that's my contention always. And now I'll give you an NBA example. Every NBA team needs at least one or two real jerks to be good. Mm-hmm. They just do.
Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah, Bill Laimbeer. Every team needs.
I love that guy.
They need one of those guys. Now, I mean,
the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah,
in general,
you need a guy that provides an edge. A lot of times, it's just edgy. And I agree with Lauren. I mean, you can have character guys, but you can also, those character guys need to flip the switch and be, nasty human beings.
I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think the guys, Lauren, and I don't know, we've talked about this endlessly, but I mean, I think that there is good player personnel on the field. I think guys can play. I always bring it down to motivation and coaching and all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is really where Billy sort of seemingly lacks, right? You know, he does all the other right things, he recruits real well and all that stuff. It just doesn't seem like, and this is all, talking last year to Urban Meyer and other people, we come down to like, scheming. Urban Meyer would say, hey, I like to go run the read option because that gave me the best chance to win on the football field without the best personnel, right? I can win like that. I got a good offensive coordinator.
It's basically Veer football.
Right, exactly.
2020, 2008, 2009. Right. I mean,
and it seemed like Miami down at the game, Miami, Cristobal, they know how to win. Played a lot of bubble screens, played to the talents of the quarterback, got guys open, played to the strength of the personnel on the field. And I just feel like Billy really tries to force that system. Like, this is the way I want it to be. This is the way we're going to play offense. This is how we're going to do it. And although that works on paper, sometimes, especially in the SEC, that doesn't seem to translate. How much of that, Lauren or Ron, do you think that is some of Billy's issue?
Well, I mean, when you look at Napier, it's he, and there's something to this, but I think he talks a lot of times about complementary football. Complementary football means that you feed off what one or the other is doing. So if your defense is playing well and you're getting stops, then you may, run the ball a little bit more, things like that. If the defense is struggling, then we got to go out and score some points, not turn the ball over, but we got to kind of keep pace with the opposing offense is doing. What happens, though, is you're not getting anything that the outsiders can complement. And what I mean by that is your offense is looking bad, your defense is looking bad. It's really tough to play complementary football when it comes to those sort of things. And, I saw Florida's roster ranked as high as 9th in some of these pro football focused things that they do. 247 had the team composites. Florida's roster was ranked 10th. Miami's was ranked 12th, which means that on paper, what Billy Napier was telling us about a retooled roster, all those things were true. But you come back to what is happening on the field. And it is just not, the message is not getting out there. I don't know what it is. But, I talked to Shane Matthews and I talked a little bit, and I'm going to say this because Shane said it on his show. There are certain ways that you teach throwing the ball, you teach defense, you teach spacing, and I'm just not sure that things are being taught from Landmark's perspective. We had a thing when I was coaching receivers. We drew a line, and Ron will know this. He's been around a lot of football. It was the bottom of the numbers to the sidelines. That was called the quarterback grass. When you run a fade route, you are running on that line to give the quarterback time to make a mistake and still lead you to the boundary to give him some room. We were running post routes. You were running at the hash, not crossing the hash, which is what I know Steve Spurrier was big on, to give them room to throw, to the pylon or give them more room for error. You just don't seem to see those things. Now, I'm not saying they're not teaching it because, like I said, with the cloak and dagger, we don't know that. And one of the frustrating things is being a former coach, and I'll let you jump in, is I would love to be able to see a little bit behind the veil so I could come on a show like this and say, hey, I've been to practice. They are coaching those guys as hard as they possibly can. It's just not getting – it's just not translating, but at least we know that they are consistently driving those young men to be the very best they can be. We know they're doing it off the field. They'll show you all the off the field stuff they're doing, but on the field, are they driving these messages home and holding the kids accountable to execute a game plan each and every week?
Yeah, let me throw this to Ron. Is Billy Napier Florida's version of Butch Jones? But Butch had some 9-win seasons, but he's all about all that other stuff. And I just think that there's no reason Florida can't win. They should, LSU, Auburn, all these schools, you got to wonder about that. But Ron, Ken Capps is going to be on with us in a minute. And, how many times in the last, 14 years has Texas had a double-digit win season? It drives them crazy. Twice. Oklahoma's done it 11 times in the last 14 years. If you look at a school that has everything in the world going for it and they're not succeeding, it drives fans crazy, Ron. You know that. But I like what Lauren just said. Add to that. And look, Billy Napier, nice guy. That's fine. You want a team full of Eagle Scouts or you want to win championships?
I agree. Billy Napier could be Butch Jones if Billy Napier, every time he talks to you, you feel like you're being recruited by him almost. You have coaches who just basically give you a lot of rah-rah stuff. And you wonder how much substance is actually there. First of all, players generally, the only time they believe in rah-rah stuff is if they really believe in the coach's message, what he's saying.
Yeah.
And if it's not, if you're not winning and you're believing in what he's doing, if it's not winning, is it your fault or the coach's fault, or is it the message? I thought Saban was probably smart enough in his later years. Saban, for a long time, always talked about the process. The process. Well, he talked about a bunch, and after a while, I think players got tired of hearing about the process. And he kind of reworded it in a different way and got his message across. I feel bad for Lauren that you can't get into practice and see what's going on. Look, I can tell LSU they're being coached. Okay, they're being coached. I've said they're being coached hard in practice. They are being coached hard. Okay, and they could have won that game yesterday, and they had a plan. They had a plan going in. That they tried to execute the plan, and they didn't execute it at times. They lost. It wasn't terrible coaching. They didn't make plays when they had to. Honestly, that sounds kind of trite, but it's true. And you had guys make a couple of dumb mental errors on penalties. I feel Florida's probably really worse off because when you're in year 3 and seeing the same mistakes, it's not good. And it's repeated. And usually when that happens, there's all the process for a coach to get fired ahead of his time. Basically, it's he says he recruits well. They lose games. The same mistakes are being made.
Yeah.
Fans get disgruntled. Fans stop going to games. Empty seats. AD looks at says we got to get rid of this guy. The guy gets fired. It's a time tested formula over and over again. And honestly, Napier's on that track. You can't come out you can't come out and look as bad as they did in game 1. You just can't. I mean, that was, and there's no way you can put a rah-rah spin on that at all. You just can't. And look, Florida's a place where I think since Spurrier, they've only had 2 coaches last 4 years, at least 4 years.
Something like that.
Florida is very quick to pull the trigger on people. They got a lot on a 3-year plan. Billy might be on that if things don't flip it a lot better in a hurry. You just can't come out in game 1 and look like that. I don't care if it's against Miami or whoever. You can't look that bad. So yeah, I mean, if you're, we should have some sort of ratings like every week of fan despair. The top 5 fan bases that are in despair this week. Florida probably be number 1. I don't know if LSU should be number 2 or not. They're not happy. A&M, maybe. They played a good team, and they kind of fell apart late in the game. As far as fan despair in the league right now, man, I mean, for a week 1, Gator fans got me up in arms, man, because it just was not. Look, even from far away, I expected more from Florida than that. I saw. I was stunned. I really was, and all the Gator fans, I can understand why they're upset. That they feel like they're not getting a return on investment, and that's in today's game. Like when Lauren talked about I mean, when you're paying a staff a bunch of money, and when you're paying players a bunch of money, there's no excuse like, oh, they're just college kids. Not anymore. You're getting
Yeah,
paid.
not anymore.
You're getting paid, so you expect a little bit better return on investment.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why uh, you know, there's a lot of unhappiness in Gainesville and in Florida today.
Yeah, and I agree. That's the whole thing. You're paying money, and I think now you also have a new kind of fan who's like a shareholder that wants to go to a shareholders meeting. I've always said football stadiums are like shareholder meetings. 90, 100,000 shareholders there. Once you invest in season tickets, throw in NIL and other things like that, whether you're giving $5 or $5,000 a month, you feel a sense of ownership. It's called equity, a stake in there. Fans are going to get madder than hell when they don't see the ROI on their money. Trust me, 33 years as a financial advisor, managing people's money. They'll say, well, it's just my play money. I go, if that's how you look at it, I will not get along with you. They, what do you mean? I go, because I'm serious about this money. You know, I'm serious about managing it. Fans, I look out there, and what's the greatest thing you can give fans is hope. And I mean, this isn't a beat up on Florida, beat up on LSU. First week, you can't panic. But you look at these Texas fans, what's going to happen? Ken Capps will be on with us in a minute. We're waiting for him. But he talks about they're used to a couple of times a year out in Texas getting up for these monster night games. Said in the SEC, we're talking about, they're going to play Texas and OU in the Red River Shootout in Dallas. The next week, you may have to go back home to Austin and host Georgia or go to LSU. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Pow. Thank you, sir. Kick me. I mean, and I'm talking in the groin area. It's, guys, but don't we love it? It just gets better every year. But the two of y'all have broken down and put in the vernacular, as well as anyone I've ever seen do it, the feelings, the emotions, and kind of what's going on at both schools. And then you throw in Foghorn Leghorn, the big donor. Well, I say, son, I gave you $5 million for that new building now. We're not winning. What's going on? I mean, Foghorn Leghorn, guys, is madder than hell right now at every school if they're not winning, because he's having to give more money, not just for brick and mortar, but for NIL.
Absolutely.
I just realized that Foghorn Leghorn sounds like Orgeron a little bit.
Yeah.
You got to put more Cajun accent.
Well, and I think I think what people don't realize too is there's NIL, the fact that I'm giving NIL money, but I think what's lost in all that everybody is giving is there's still some reluctance on this whole NIL process. So for every person that's giving money, you still have the people that say, I don't like the NIL. I hate the NIL, which brings that negative connotation to that thing, particularly when the team is losing, because now you don't have that, well, at least we're winning. Excuse me, I'm spending money. But you got these guys who don't like NIL, whether it be, the older donor, the Foghorn Leghorn, those type of guys. There's that negative connotation with NIL. Now these guys are making all this money, and we're going out there and we're looking like trash. You got a quarterback, driving a Maserati or a Porsche, and it looks like trash. And now you get the same scrutiny that Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson and some of those guys are getting. So that NIL piece and how continuously global the game of college football is getting, I mean, the eyes are on it. And like you said, you look at, Samford comes to town this weekend, but then that Texas A&M game looms large. And I got news for them. Texas A&M looks a lot better on defense than they did a year ago. I mean, they were flying around. Notre Dame brings it to you physically. And not to kind of pinpoint even more of the Florida Gators, but old Scooby Williams, who started linebacker for Florida, he looked a lot better for Texas A&M the other night. And so you're going to have some of your wayward sons that kind of left the program, similar to the way Tyron Hopper was just last year at Missouri. And you're like, what, how did we let that guy get out the door? How did we let him leave? And how is that Coach A is coaching better than Coach B when he had, even though it's the same linebacker coach because Bateman went out. But in a lot of cases, you see improvement when they leave. And I think, I wrote in my article that, and I probably shouldn't say this because I'm going to be at the presser, but I got to, is I played, coached. We never judged our team on how clean our locker room was. And I heard a couple coaches on the Florida staff mark that as the roster was improving, one of the identifiers to an improved roster was that the locker room was cleaner. So I wrote in my article that, man, Saturday was not good, but at least the locker room's clean. And I told you this, Rob. I mean, this is a game of kings played by savages.
Yeah, but this is what's happening at Florida. This is like they're looking for any little tiny sliver. But it was okay. But
the locker room, Brennan, I would at least say,
but that's like the lowest common denominator. It's like, great, we have a clean locker room.
Yeah. That's like
better be clean because you suck.
Yeah,
it's like sitting in the electric chair and saying it was comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
you're worse than last year, and you're worse than the year before that. And I've been talking about it for a year. And everyone's telling me Florida's good this year.
But let me throw this out there.
Ron,
and I want to ask Ron this, and I want to ask Ron this, and ask all of you, because I'm not, I do well, but I'm not necessarily the numbers guy, and Ron's been through it a lot longer, and he actually went through it with Orgeron. Is the buyout? Will the buyout $27 million, 85% of the original salary, if he's fired within 3 years? It's in writing. How large, Ron, does that loom in the decision? Because unlike living here in Gainesville, there's some money people, but I don't know if there's 27 million money people. And from everything I've heard, Billy is safe until the buyout goes into single digits, which I think would be after year 5. But if things just go off the rails, is that
have a bonus in there after 3 or 4 where he makes less, but he gets bonus after the
I don't know, but I know if he's fired after 3, Brendan, he gets 85% of the original contract.
What happens if he gets in trouble with the NCAA? Is there a clause that he doesn't?
Yes, well, there would be a show clause, but he's not really in trouble. So
well,
yeah, but
let me throw one to Ron. Ron, what? I mean, looking at you cover LSU, Shreveport, Bossier Journal, but the SEC. You're one of the best writers around. Your dad, 19 years, sports information director. I don't call them media relations directors anymore because they're in the business of saying no. SIDs like David Housel, like your dad, like Norm Carlson, Bob Hartley, Langston Rogers, welcomed you, picked you up at the airport, and brought you to their school and fed you and entertained you and made you feel like a welcome guest. I'm going to throw that at you. But, Ron, what if you could go to practice, like Lauren's saying, and you were out there and saying, hey, I'm at practice. Let me assure you, they're working these guys like rented mules, or they're not. I think if I'm a Billy Napier, I open my practices up. Are you trying to hide what we saw Saturday?
Yes, you are.
You've
been trying to hide it for 3 years. That's why you won't come talk to Buddy Martin. That's why you won't come talk to anybody, because it's like a fraud. I feel like it's a con job. I just do. I really feel like it's a con job because you're a great recruiter. You're a great recruiter. And you're great with talking people, and everyone likes you. That's great. But the product in the field doesn't follow suit. It doesn't follow. I left at almost the end of second quarter of the game because I was like, I have seen this game. I've seen it before. Yeah, it's not going to end well, and they're going to lose. We're going to bring in Ken Capps here real quick.
Yeah, Ron. And Ron, I want to get your response. Ken had a little trouble. It was in the email. His link. He's in the Hook'em Hut out there in Texas right now. But Ken Capps, we got Ron Higgins on here, Shreveport Bossier Journal, Lauren Meadows, GatorbaitMedia.com. We had Coach Ellis Johnson on early. He got everybody all excited. Brendan Martin. What's going on out there in Longhorn country? You got to go to the big house. Are you taking the bus to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I'm gonna load up my I'm gonna load up my 2021 Wrangler with the big Longhorns on the front of it. You know, you've seen it, Ron, and just go straight up I-35 and keep going until I get to the Canadian border there. And if I start today, maybe I'll be there by kickoff. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna be
But hey,
fun.
I got to tell y'all something funny though. Y'all talk, Rob. I loved about you talking about Foghorn Leghorn, and I was sitting here thinking about it, and of course, everything you said was right. But guess what? I have a Foghorn Leghorn here, and
I
so
love it. Yes, sir.
this was my son Austin's Foghorn Leghorn. We are a Looney Tune family here at the Cap South, and
love it.
I thought, oh my God, I think I know where that Foghorn Leghorn is. So I ran I ran back into the house. So now I have to put this somewhere in my shot from now on, so we always know where the Foghorn Leghorns are.
Yeah, he's the super booster, man. Hey, let's get this thing rolling, man. Ron, you probably know Ken. This is what I love about all these great writers. It's like Austin City Limits. You know, you're looking up there, and there'd be Waylon and Willie, Merle Haggard. When all y'all get together, the skill, the insight that you have, it's priceless. So, Ron, jump in here. I'd ask Ron a question, Ken, right before you came on. And Ken, Ron, remember what it was? Because I'm not sure if I do. I'm so excited, and I'm hopped up on coffee this morning. But see if you can answer that real quick, and we'll get bouncing around here on this.
Oh no, I'm old. I can't remember. You lost me with Foghorn Leghorn.
I say.
I think we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, a coach is going to buy out, and when you decide to fire a coach, if he has a huge buyout, $27 million on Napier. I think there comes a point with an AD when he realizes I've got to get my money people together and buy this guy out because I can't let this program go too far down the toilet because it's too far. It's too hard to get it back. LSU made that decision with Orgeron. They could see that. They could see that he quit. Basically he quit recruiting after the national championship year. I mean, 2 months after the parade, he got divorced from his wife, and Ed seemed like his priorities were to run shirtless and flex in beach bars for the next 2 years.
I saw that. That'd be like me running around in Cabo without my shirt. Not a good look.
Not a good look, but and so Ed was happy to take $17.2 million and walk out the door. He was. I mean, it was the happiest I've ever seen a coach at a firing press conference. Honestly, I talked to my mama. She said, "Make sure you get your money."
Well, guys, let's remember the ultimate. Paying Jimbo $70 million to leave. Come on. Come on.
Yes,
and then,
we ain't got that kind of money down here, I don't think. I've been to Texas A&M. I don't think they got that kind of money down here in Gainesville.
No, they have to. They're having to pay him in installments. It's like a credit card plan. I mean, they couldn't give it all to him. I think he got. I forget how much he got the first year, and then
$20 million up front, and then $7.6 million for the next 7 or 8 years. Ron, is that right?
Okay, I'm good with that. And now I'd be fine, okay with that. But then, guys, do you recall that just last week he says he's ready to get back into coaching? Are you kidding me? So hey, while we're talking about this, maybe there's going to be an opening at Florida here soon.
Ryan,
for Jimbo.
You never think you have enough money, okay? You always you always say we don't have enough money to buy it out. I mean, we don't have those type of guys. If Florida keeps going down the drain midway through the season, I guarantee that they'll find guys.
Oh yeah,
because there's enough guys out there. So, I mean, I didn't think LSU had the money to buy Orgeron out. Really, I said they'll go to the end of the year and they'll wait till the buyout goes down and they'll get rid of the guy. I think it comes to a point where your AD has to say, "Uh-oh, I screwed up." And I mean, the money guys are telling him. Look, most money guys make the decision for him. They're going to tell him, "Hey, Scott, we're not going to give you any more money if
Exactly.
you don't get rid of this guy. Now, we'll
No,
give
that's exactly right. And what Rob said earlier, I was listening to the show, Rob. We got a Ron and a Rob. I was listening to the show, Rob, and listening to what y'all were talking about. And you're exactly right. Those the guys that are ponying up the big bucks. I mean, the really big bucks, the millions. Okay, to get their names on buildings and on fields and things like that. They get really ticked when all that money they're giving does not produce results on the field. And then they especially get ticked because, we've gone through this down here at Texas with Tom Herman being the latest example, where you're having to come up with money that you basically are paying somebody to leave. And that money is not getting you anything. It's not getting you a better anything. It's just basically you're handing over your hard-earned money that you've made in the oil business or the tech business down here in Texas or down in Austin, especially the tech business, and you're just throwing it in the street and giving it to some coach, and you're not getting anything really in return except for the guy to be gone. And so I think that's where what you said is exactly right. People feel like they have an ownership in the program. And let me just tell you another one, guys. Ron, you were talking about it. Let me tell you, you were saying that maybe Florida and who's the other school you said? LSU, of course. Let me tell you, the Aggies are right up there today in angst and in despair. Okay, I covered that game after I watched I was in person for the Texas Colorado State game, and let me tell you, A&M looked terrible. Okay, they just looked terrible. Connor Wegman, I was very disappointed in how he looked. And again, I may have went to Texas, but I covered Texas A&M and Oklahoma. I wear black. I'm as neutral as Switzerland. Okay, so I watch these games, as a reporter for Football Writers of America, and I couldn't believe that how the Aggies, how they looked. I didn't think Notre Dame looked that much better, but I definitely thought that that A&M would put on a better show. But okay, they lost their first game. Okay, I know that's tough. That's terrible. Yesterday, as I was putting together my show prep, you're talking about people being ugly, Brendan, about throwing in notes. You know what they were calling Elko yesterday? Jimbo 2. Jimbo 2. And you know what? That's just sorry. Okay. Just like me and Rob have talked about many times on this show. It's like when we were talking about Brent Venables the last couple of years. Brent Venables didn't leave Clemson and all of a sudden forgot how to coach. Okay. Yeah. Elko didn't leave Duke and all of a sudden forget how to coach.
He wanted Duke. He wanted Duke.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So he's going to be good, but I can't believe these Aggie fans are just already just all over Mike Elko like white on rice and calling him Jimbo 2.0. I just thought that was just so poor sportsmanship.
Well, I will say this. I'm looking forward to getting our good friend. I love Olin Buchanan out of White Oak Tech.
Amen.
He's such a good person. And we had fun last week when he was on with Ryan. Ryan, everybody, I've had more people that I go to church at St. Louis with going, where is he? I said, I ran into him at Media Days, but you were loved in Memphis and all over, as well as all this panel here, because y'all are honest. Y'all are not afraid to say what you think. And I'll say this about the A&M thing. That's another one, as Franz Beard says on the show a lot, only God and the Longhorns have more money than the Aggies. And you think about all this money, but a boardroom full of J.R. Ewings, it's hard to get a decision out of there. I think about on a micro level, Raymond Harbert from Mountain Brook at Auburn gave the largest gift at the time, October 5th of 2013. I was there for the groundbreaking for the Harbert College of Business Management at Auburn, and it was he gave like $55 million. And then he also got involved with the board of trustees, and Stephen Leith and Raymond Harbert was influential in getting Gus the 7-year, $49 million deal, Ron, with a $32 million buyout. Ron, I'm going to throw this at you. The Pennington family at LSU, that's a big, big money family. They got people out there. And you can't get mad at your money if you are in the stock market or in business. But, Ron, what do you think what Ken just said about the temperature at A&M. You paid $75 million to Jimbo to go away. And Doug Dean, part of this show, my great friend down in Birmingham, he's a team member of Sidelines, said, Auburn fans a few years ago were clamoring for Tom Herman, Billy Napier, and Jimbo Fisher. He said, be careful what you wish for. You might get it. Ron, your thoughts on what he just said? And then this is great stuff.
Well, I agree. I mean, you get disgusted with your head coach when he loses a game you don't think he should lose, but also the fact that you can't kill a guy right out of the gate this first game. I mean,
correct.
With Kelly, I go back to the fact that he took over a team that had 38 players on scholarship because most of the team left because they got tired of Orgeron, being a combination of Foghorn Leghorn and the assistant coach and the water boy. Okay. I say so. I say we're not throwing the ball. And so you hired a guy who's a proven head coach, and I still think he's a good head coach. And look, he's got a good recruiting class committed.
Yeah.
I think LSU's biggest downfall is you can't keep scheduling these marquee games and openers. Okay, I'm sorry. I mean, there comes a point where it's okay not to be, the team that plays somebody pretty good the first game. There's no shame in playing a Humpty in game one. There just isn't. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't, because you can make mistakes, and not get beat. And I don't care if it's great for your recruiting or not. I mean, this great exposure for their only game on Sunday night. Yeah, but it's also no fun to be the game on Sunday night and lose, and constantly be right there and put yourself. Look, it's no fun to be one game down every year going into your second game for 5 years in a row. And you talk about that. Well, it's a college football playoff. There's 12 teams. You only got basically one more game leeway to deal with the rest of the season now, because anything worse than 10-2 is probably not going to get you to the playoff. So you still can't afford to lose games. I still think Hill is a good coach.
Yeah.
He has a plan. You can see him. They're trying to execute stuff.
Yeah.
He got rid of a whole new defensive staff and put a new defensive staff in there. It would have been nice to play a Humpty in game one to kind of work some of the kinks out. That's all I'm saying. They'll probably – I picked them to go at best 10-2 this year, more likely 9-3. I can see more 9-3, 8-4 at this point. Some things got to get corrected. But he's not going to get fired. And look, and to the point, at least we got into practice and we saw what was going on, and we saw them being coached hard, and we saw that some of their deficiencies that, their defensive backs still look really shaky. And you still have to figure out how to cover up some of the deficiency, and they couldn't get it done in game one. Now you got to figure out how to get it done in game two. But I feel bad for Elko, because I just don't know that anybody is as desperate as Aggies. Aggies are the most desperate form of people in a life form in America. They just are. Because
I don't know if you saw the quote yesterday on game day. Somebody had a sign. Somebody had a sign out in the crowd at game day that said, "The last time the Aggies won a national championship was the year Lee Corso was born." That's 89 years. That's 89 years ago.
I mean,
somebody did the math.
I think that
A&M fans don't understand it. Nobody else does. But you look, they have the money, they have the facilities.
Sure, they do.
They're in a great football state.
Mm-hmm.
In some sense, they had for the past few years, they've had an advantage over Texas because they were in the SEC, and that does help you in recruiting. I mean, it does give you an edge, And I'm sure the most unhappiest group of fans in the world was A&M the day that they in Texas announced they were coming to the SEC.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, they hated it. They
I was
hated
in
it.
the room.
Because
well,
they're Christ, they're coming back. Really?
Right,
look at-
exactly.
I mean, I think you're looking at. I mean, there's similarities and then there's major differences.
Wow.
Both Texas A&M and LSU have proven winners at a high level. Mike Elko, like you said, won 9 games at Duke. I go back, being from the Midwest, I remember Brian Kelly at Grand Valley State.
Amen.
Won. Central Michigan won. Cincinnati won.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame won. Despite what you think of him, and I know there's mixed reviews, he wins everywhere it goes. And really, if you think about it, even at LSU, I think Florida fans would trade that success immediately.
Yeah.
And so
Right now. Right now.
yeah. So when you look at it from that standpoint, I think that you can preach patience to the fan bases of both LSU and Texas A&M. You can whereas with Florida, not only did you have the 5-7 season, but all season one of the saving graces were they had a top 5 recruiting class during that time. Well, then the bottom fell out of that, and now it went to like 13th or 14th, depending on who you ask, 15th or whatever, depending on who you look at. So now you don't have that to hang your hat on either. And I think that's what is absent from a fan base like Florida or those evaluate. I don't want to say fan because I hate when people say, well, we as the fans deserve the people that observe the program and have like Rob said, a investment in the program.
Yes.
Is where is the saving grace right now? And that's the question. And, this is something as I continue to get into this is what is the saving grace? What now do you have to look forward to outside of a great recruiting base and resources that are there? What else does a team like Florida, and you guys have been around this a long time and seen the bottom fall out of these programs. My concern is, and I told somebody this, and you guys can echo this sentiment. Florida is in jeopardy of being Nebraska, in my opinion. They are in jeopardy of being that team that is in search of the next Steve Spurrier / Tom Osborne / Urban Meyer. And just wandering in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska jumped into the Big Ten to try to, obviously Florida's not leaving the SEC, but my concern is that if this continues and the next guy, whether it's 2 years down the road, 2 months down the road, if the next guy is not the guy to last more than 3 to 4 years at Florida, Florida will be Nebraska. And then we're off and running for the next.
All right, let me throw this worst decision in recent history: firing a coach. Frank Solich let go after 6 or 7 years at Nebraska. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The person who did that is a living brain donor. Ron, Ken, anyone want to respond to this one? But look, we got a few minutes left. Absolutely. Let me tell you how much, Ron. I know you've been sick over the weekend. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. You're so kind to be on this show. Ken Capps, ditto. Lauren, Brendan, our producer, Coach Johnson in the first part. This is great content because nobody's trying to destroy these people. They're people. But when you put it in the context, guys, of the job they're doing with the resources at their disposal, you got to give them grades. It's just, you have to. And you got to be agnostic and just say, I'm looking at it like, okay, what's the ROI? Ron, you heard what Ken said about the A&M fans, and y'all both said it. When you have all that money and you still can't get it done, what does it tell you? People matter, don't they?
Oh, yeah. And look, LSU's hired good people.
Yeah.
And look, I'm sure that, probably the Las Vegas police this morning are still pulling LSU fans out of Caesar, out of Bellagio.
Hey, I want to know where our friend Frank Duffy is. I think
he's out there.
I know. I just wonder if he's still at the crap tables. He hadn't left.
He did the show, guys, at 6:00 Friday morning with us. from the casino, and someone handed him all the betting lines. It looked like a breakfast menu. He goes, "I'll take 3 of those and 2 of those." But keep rolling, guy. Frank is he was not happy last night.
Oh, I bet not.
I think that I still think LSU's a good team. They just, again, it wasn't like they went off the rails. Some of the stuff that showed up was things we saw in practice. So to us, it wasn't a surprise. It was a surprise that they couldn't run the ball better. That was a surprise. I thought Nussmeier, for the most part, played what he was. I do think what I took away from that, we all know that Nussmeier is not Jay Daniels as far as running the ball.
No.
But that said, Jay Nussmeier needs to pull and run that ball at least 3 and 4 times a game just to keep a defense honest. You can't. You can't keep. If you're a defender, you like, okay, he's not gonna pull it and run. We're just gonna key on the guy and just crush him. Nussmeier not even one rushing attempt, not one. There wasn't even a scramble because he rolls out and they have good pass protection. It's some things you got to take from game 1 to game 2 to adjust. That's one of them, and they'll adjust. But it's just you just really, as LSU fans, you just want this to win this game so bad because you're tired of losing openers. And I get it to the point now but the LSU fans like, look, let's just go find a directional school. Find any school that has a hyphen in their name. Give them almost $1 million to show up, and let's put 70 on them, and we'll all be happy going to week 2 when we can correct the mistakes we made and we still win the game.
Yeah.
But there's still confidence in like Lauren said, Brian Kelly is a proven winner.
Yes.
You know by talking to him, he doesn't BS you. He shoots straight. He doesn't. I mean, there's nothing deceiving about what Brian Kelly says. That's the best part about talking to him.
Yeah.
He's a straight shooter. And
yes, I love the fact. I love him at SEC Media Days, man. He's one of the best speakers, and he takes every question, and he doesn't give coach speak. And I really admire Brian Kelly, and I really enjoy listening to him.
Well, and when you ask Brian Kelly why he's, how you get it done. And I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm just that good. And you got to appreciate that sometimes. I mean, the man believes in his ability to coach.
Well, he's got a little bit of that Irish. He's still got a little bit of that Irish smack to him,
Right.
He's from Boston.
But hey, guys, before we get out of here, though, we got to talk about the most important thing that happened in the SEC this week. Arch Manning scored his first 2 touchdowns in the league.
Wow, that's right.
Come on.
He looked good.
Right.
I mean,
the pressure was on.
I mean, come on. Okay, so let me just because everybody was so thrilled down here in Austin. Okay, so let's paint the picture. Y'all probably watched the game. Ewers has the team out to a 38-0 lead at the end of the third quarter. Manning comes in. It's like the Rolling Stones have just taken the stage, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
101,000 people go crazy for him, As we've always said here in Texas, the most popular kid on the team is the second-string quarterback. But with Manning, it's even more so. So he goes in. He's in 3 plays. Boom, boom, boom. He throws a touchdown pass, his first touchdown pass, puts a score on the board. And then a couple of drives later, it's 4th and 1 on the Colorado State goal line. And Texas is up easily, but you're gonna let those guys play. And time's running out. But QB sneak Manning, he's a big old boy. I mean, I think people forget that he's a tall, big kid, and he just rolls in that end zone. So 2 touchdowns. I was talking to my buddies that were sitting around me. I go, I'm sure that I hope Cooper and Grandpa and everybody was in DKR and like Sarkeesian Suite or something, because that man, after he waited around for 2 years to really get some meaningful playing time, it was just so great to see him play so well. And man, he puts a zang on that ball. I mean,
Yeah.
those receivers really have to hang on because he's just not throwing it out there. I mean, he's putting some speed on that thing. So I just wanted to shout out to the Mannings and to Arch because he's waited a long time. You remember when he first got to campus, he lost his driver's license, he got his car towed, and but now everything's good with Arch.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, look, we watched a lot of football. We got another game tonight, Florida State, Boston College. Mike Norvell, if I were your consultant, quit talking about not getting in the playoffs last year.
Right.
You got to get your locker room back. You got to look ahead. That's over with. Coaches that do that, it never works out well. Look, Lauren Meadows, GatorbaitMedia.com, Ron Higgins, Shreveport Bossier Journal, Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, Coach Ellis Johnson, executive producer Brendan Martin. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, people. We're blessed. Go out and bless others. Day Caloris. We will see you tomorrow. Ryan, get better. All of y'all, let's do this again next week. You got the people fired up. Happy Labor Day, everybody. We are out of here. Take care.
All right.
Thank y'all.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.